I don't have evidence of those claims, but I do believe that the president has a right to make sure that he has a man or woman in that position that he has full faith and confidence in. The job market has been very difficult to analyze at a period of time as the gig economy has dramatically ticked up, as we have seen a shift in jobs as it relates to foreign-born or natural-born citizens. And so making sure the president has someone in that position that he has full faith and confidence in is his prerogative.
Do you think that when he goes to fill the vacancy on the Fed board here following Governor Kugler's resignation on Friday, Congressman, that person, in fact, will be the Fed chair, the new Fed chair in waiting?
I don't have information one way or the other, but I do think it's important to recognize that the decisions made by the Federal Reserve are not made by any one individual. Often we see the Federal Reserve Board act with unanimity, but that may or may not be the case. And so we may see more divisions and votes. And I don't think that's an inherently bad thing for the Federal Reserve. And so it's a group of people. The key is that they are making these decisions based on the data in front of them, not based on any other ulterior motive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so when the president suggests that the person he wants to chair the Fed ultimately, and very well the person he'd like to select is the governor that replaces Kugler, that he wants them to have a low interest rate bias, Congressman, do you see that as a problem if lower interest rates may or may not be justified by the data?
Well, again, what we want is these decisions made by the Fed based on the data in front of them. Again, having disagreement or different points of view brought to the Federal Reserve Board, I don't think is an inherently negative thing. And the Federal Reserve has been criticized for decades by different administrations. President Trump just doing it more publicly than maybe President Nixon, where we found out later when the tapes were revealed. And so putting pressure on the Fed is nothing new. I think what we're seeing is just it play out in a little bit more of a public manner. Although the Federal Reserve is independent of the executive, that does not mean it's immune to criticism from the administration.
Congressman, we had a look at the town hall meeting that you held last week that got pretty chippy. There were a number of folks who were booing, and we've been talking about the potential for some confrontational town halls this August recess following the passage of the president's big, beautiful bill and, of course, the rescissions package that followed. I just want to give our listeners and viewers a taste of what you ran into the other night. Let's watch and listen.
Tell me the dire circumstances that triggered his tariff wars. Thank you.
Very good.
Tom, you got a veteran's hat, so out of the gates, I just want to say thank you for your service to our country. As we look at the broader tariff back and forth that's going on with the administration, this really, at its core, needs to be an opportunity to make sure that other countries are treating the United States fairly. The United States.
So a big round of booing there, and as we read in the local media, Congressman, protesters actually walked to your home with a cardboard coffin to represent the people they say would die from cuts to Medicaid. I'm just curious what your thoughts are coming out of a session like that and how you respond to these constituents.
I've done dozens and dozens of town halls across Wisconsin over the years. Media reports said that probably out of a room of roughly 400 people, there may be 30 to 50 protesters inside. Rest assured, they were loud. I don't think that group of protesters, the small group that was inside the room, were really representative of the views of most people in southeast Wisconsin. This was a group that tried to obstruct the Pledge of Allegiance, booed when we said, let's have a productive conversation. And so at the end of the day, I think what's really challenging right now across the board in the United States is a willingness to really engage in productive conversation about what needs to be done to move our country forward. And so far too often, individuals resort to disruptive tactics rather than engaging in what's really needed of a substantive conversation, a period of time where we're massively driving debt further and further up, where we have global challenges from a national security perspective, and where we've made, I think, great progress on securing the U.S.-Mexico border. And so maybe it's a point in time of reflection for the whole country to reflect and analyze how we can have a much more productive dialogue, which is going to be really essential based on the challenges that are in front of us.
Well, you Have you had any productive engagement around issues constituents may have around the way in which this one big beautiful bill threatens to affect them, or they're worried will affect them? Does it give you pause about any elements of the piece of legislation that you voted for?
Well, there's a lot of misinformation that's circulating on key provisions of the bill, which is why I was hoping to use this forum as an opportunity to provide folks and residents across Wisconsin better information about what's actually in the legislation that's become law. We use a number of different venues to do this, through email, telephone calls, in-person town halls just being one of the ways in which I try to communicate with folks. But there's a lot of misinformation, in particular as it relates to Medicaid. And in regards to Medicaid, what we're seeing in Wisconsin is mostly a shift towards work requirements for able-bodied childless adults in the state of Wisconsin. That's an 80-20 issue because it's common sense that we know that we can help lift people up out of poverty as long as a job is a core component of that.
Yeah. Well, look, I think that everyone deserves a lot of credit for being at that town hall on both sides of this, including you, Congressman, as a lawmaker. Making a decision to interact with constituents has not been terribly popular from what we've seen lately. And I wonder if you actually can hear from the voters who are upset about debt and deficits, seeing some $4 trillion added to ours in the so-called big, beautiful bill. There has been, I know, a conversation about coming back around to lower the debt impact of this legislation. Is that what the next move should be?
We had questions on that exact topic, and I think it's important to know that as the Washington, D.C. accountants analyze that cost, large chunks of that, or the overwhelming majority of that, is actually just simply making the 2017 tax cuts permanent. We simply built on that by providing tax relief to seniors on Social Security, those individuals working overtime or earning tips. And so the bulk of the cost is really shown up by simply doubling down and making sure that we're making permanent the 2017 tax cuts that had a real substantive positive impact on real wages for families across the state. And so it's reasonable that people can have different views on any given policy, but this is where making sure individuals have the information they need to be able to make their decisions is so absolutely essential, and why a small group of individuals who protested the town hall was a bit disappointing for the countless individuals that wanted to hear what I was trying to provide.
Congressman, we just have 30 seconds left, but when you return to Washington come September, what odds do you put around a government shutdown?
We can't allow a government shutdown to occur. I know there's a lot of my Democratic colleagues that are actually hoping that we do shut down. I don't view that as productive. I'd rather make sure that we come together, address the spending challenges we face, and do what we need to do to avoid a shutdown at the end of September.